think you're going to do all these great music projects and you just want to work on your music, and then you realize there's something a lot darker going on, and it has nothing to do with your music. I didn't really understand why they wanted to work with me so much, but they did. And then the next day, he told my manager, I think she got drugged last night. And I'm like, yeah, and it was you.
Welcome to another episode of the Liberating Humanity podcast. This is Paul Hutchinson. Today, I have a special guest that my wife and I met just a few days ago. We were at a conference here in Miami, and this woman has a fascinating story, and it leads right into a lot of the things that we're discussing here on the Liberating Humanity podcast. Her name is Katrella Karyofilis, and she was a top DJ in Canada, in fact, in Ottawa. She rose to the top of the charts with many of the things that she had put together. She's toured all around the world in the entertainment industry. However, today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of the entertainment industry and what you can do to keep your kids safe if they decide that that's something they want to go into. As you guys may have remembered, I talked in depth with my wife about some of the challenges that she went through as an artist, as an actress, especially in Latin America. And so super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
You've been waiting a while to share your story publicly.
Yes, I have been.
And the reason I thought this would be such an amazing time to bring it out is that there's things all over the news right now with the P. Diddy scandal.
Yep.
P. Diddy was this big entertainer. Everybody looked up to him. Wow, this is so amazing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people like yourself who were up and coming artists who were doing well in the space, in the music industry, who were being taken advantage of because of people like Diddy.
Right. And I think that it's all related at the top of the music industry. And I think I was in that exact situation and escaped from it. So
we're
it was
excited
close,
excited to explore what that escape looks like and the things that you identified as triggers of warning signs, so to speak, that kept you in a safe position. You know, for you as the audience who haven't been reading the news lately, the P. Diddy situation is bigger than most people even imagined. There are hundreds and hundreds of victims over a period of more than a decade. And sadly, nobody came forward 15, 20 years ago when this started getting bad. He had these, what they call freak-off parties, where he would bring in celebrities and he would bring in beautiful young women that were up and coming in the entertainment industry, and he would bring in sex-trafficked women as well. So he's been accused and incarcerated. He's been put in prison and detained for racketeering, for bribery, for sex trafficking, and more. And so and unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry where as soon as greed and arrogance and lust is allowed to control your life, then those energies destroy other lives. And so let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
You wanted to be in the music industry since you were how old, and what brought you into it?
I got into the music industry right after high school. I was just working in nightlife as a bartender, but I also really loved music. So, DJs were my kind of go-to. I would go to a lot of DJ shows, and that's kind of how I got into it. I became friends with a lot of DJs, and I got fascinated by watching them, and I was like, I want to learn how to do this. And so because I was already working in nightlife, the boss of the nightclub let me practice there all the time. So I had a club to, just spend my free time playing during the day when he'd do inventory and stuff. And that's kind of how it got started for me. So I had an opportunity to play right away as well. And
now DJs can do, I've actually met some DJs that were making like over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought it was just the artists themselves, the musicians, but literally being able to run the crowd and put the right music in and the right stuff together is a pretty powerful position.
I am a music producer as well. A lot of my own music out. But yeah, no, being a DJ, it's an entire industry in itself, and it is, there's a lot of money you can make on it. There's corporate, or there's the, EDM side of the festivals and the everything else, you know. So
And you toured
I toured.
all
I've
over.
done all of it. I've done corporate. I've done touring, big underground shows. You know, I've done it all.
You've been all the way to Thailand. So you've literally been
Yes.
around the world
Yes.
as a DJ.
Yeah, I played in Koh Samui.
Awesome.
It's beautiful there.
Awesome, awesome. And then you had a song that hit the top of the charts
Yes.
for quite a while.
Find Our Way. It went to #1 in France and Germany. So that was really, really cool.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. So, you know, you're young, you're beautiful, you're talented, and you start getting the attention of people like P. Diddy.
Well, I
and
lost
other
my, so in 2022, I actually lost my manager, Jay, during the pandemic. And we were supposed to go on tour starting that weekend he passed. And right after that, I kind of met all these people.
So just like in the trafficking world, when travesty hits, when hard times hit, sometimes these guys are waiting. I had, you know, one of my operations, we rescued some kids in Haiti that were literally taken by the traffickers right after the earthquake in Haiti and were sold for years. And nobody even knew they were alive. And so, and it happens all over the world. You see what's happening in Ukraine right now. It's there's so many difficult conditions, and when women and children are in these difficult positions, then all of a sudden the predators come in. It's just like the animal world. You know, if you want to hunt a coyote, the best way to draw them in is to have this little whistle that sounds like a distressed rabbit, like a hurt rabbit, right? Because somebody with that predator drive is going to feel and listen for that energy of that distressed rabbit, and that's where the coyotes are going to come. It's the same thing in the exploitation world. As soon as somebody is in a difficult position, then all of a sudden these things happen. So your manager that you loved and trusted passed away.
Yeah, no, it was like a brother to me, Jay, and that's kind of, you know, after that I didn't really know what to do. He was my rock, and I didn't really realize until I lost him how much he was really there for me, you know. He made phone calls for me every day. He had passwords to accounts that I didn't even have, you know, like I was just kind of lost for a little bit. But I have opportunities here and good people around me as well, and got back into it. And unfortunately, I met the wrong new people here who wanted to, you know, work with me right away and showed interest, but they were more on the hip hop side of things. So I didn't really understand why they wanted to work with me so much, but they did.
Well, they probably have ulterior motives.
Correct.
And, you know, and Jay, you know, the example of Jay being so good for you in your life, I would liken it unto a father figure. You know, when young girls are growing up, the ones that are most at risk are ones where a protector is out of the home and the mother is not being that protector role. And so we see it a lot with broken families and whatnot. And so, you know, now that person that was your front, that was your brother, that was taking care of you is out of the picture. Now others start showing interest and you didn't know who to trust. So
exactly. And so a girl who befriended me, she's not from here, but she was living here in Miami. She has an agency, and she was trying to get me to work with her for quite a while. And she just became my friend. We weren't working on anything specific. She was over at my house one day, and I was going through my own personal issues at the time, completely unrelated, but I was just venting to her. And she told me, you know what? You need to talk to my friend that's a lawyer. She knows just what you need. Let's call her right now. So she calls this lawyer, and this lawyer, we talked for a little bit, and at the end of the phone call, she told me she wanted to introduce me to somebody, one of her clients in the music industry, who's buying a bunch of nightclubs in Miami. And I said, interesting, all right, you can introduce me to him. Not really thinking anything of it. About 2 hours later, she called me with somebody named William Summers, and I still to this day have no idea who he is. Somebody living in Uruguay who said he was investing $6 million into my new music project he wanted to start, wanted to fly me out to Uruguay. Very weird and very, very extreme all of a sudden. She said, you know, this is my most wealthy client, and coming from a lawyer, I, you trust it. You at
Absolutely.
least, even as ridiculous as it sounds, like
Well, and this happens a lot with trafficking in Latin America. The $6 million was the shiny thing to get your
they
attention
even made a
here, and
contract.
the trust from the attorney and
Right,
whatnot. But with these kids in Latin America, a lot of times it's
right.
building the trust as a member of the family, or a cousin or whatnot. You've already have the trust there, like you had with the attorney, and then
Children
offering
are
them,
helpless. Yeah,
yeah,
they can't
offering them
protect
some big money.
themselves.
So
Sad.
so let's talk about what happened next. So you felt uncomfortable. They literally they offered you a six
Well,
million
the
dollar
6 million
contract.
didn't come the first day. It was a little bit slower than that. At first, it was more like we want you to come DJ out here in Uruguay, and when I open my nightclubs in Miami, I'm going to need help with them, so you could DJ there. I was like, okay, well, when's the festival happening? Like I didn't see any, no flyers, no nothing. It didn't really make sense, and they stopped talking less about the festival in Uruguay for a while and more about the nightclubs he was opening. We even started working at one of the nightclubs for a couple weeks. And this guy is a complete scammer. He was buying nightclubs with Bitcoin structured CDs, which at the time I had no idea what that even meant. I'm not in finance, or I didn't understand anything about Bitcoin structured CDs. But if these deals are going through, to me, it looked like, okay, this guy just bought this nightclub and now we're working here. How did he do that if it's a scam? Makes no sense to me to this day. But he sent his sister down to Miami to meet with me one day. And I met with his sister at the venue he was purchasing. And right after I met with her, she got arrested and sent to federal prison for fraud.
Wow.
And he was still telling me that this is all real, this is all legit, and I need to go to Uruguay. He even had my ticket booked to Uruguay. He had me on the phone with people all day. He hired Beyonce and Jay-Z's old personal manager for me. I was on the phone with him all day. Like, I don't know how these people pulled all this off. It's just very bizarre. But I knew I wasn't getting $6 million, and therefore I did not go to Uruguay. I just decided I'm not going on this trip. And the woman who actually set me up with these people, who was arguing with William at the time, told me, you were going to get sex trafficked down there. That's where you were going. So I don't know how or why she knows that.
Well, she
But
probably.
she's also the same woman who introduced me to Ron Goldberg.
So she was helping, wanting to introduce you, but then she saw the signs and she probably
Well,
backed out and said, "This is dangerous." Is it?
or I don't know. I think that their egos got in the way of what they were even doing between each other.
Well, that was good that she recognized
Yeah.
the signs, and indeed, that's what happens a lot. We had a young woman who was in Ecuador, and the traffickers convinced her to fly to Peru, and immediately upon being in Peru, they went and took her and bought a bunch of sexy clothes, and they took away her passport, they took away her phone, they drugged her, they raped her, and then they said, "Listen, we know where your family lives, and if you say anything to anybody, then they will be killed, and you're going to be bringing in a minimum of $1,000 a day." Is what was going on, and she was in Peru, and if she didn't bring it in, then they told her they would beat her up, and indeed they did beat her up. It was, she had been trafficked for a couple of years, and finally, she didn't bring in the 1,000. They beat her up. She ended up going to a hospital. Fortunately, the good people at the hospital recognized the signs of trafficking, and that's when our team was called, and we were able to help not only get her out, but take down the entire trafficking ring in doing so. So I truly believe, I agree with that lady
I
and
think
with yourself.
is
Indeed, that's
absolutely
what was going to
something
happen.
going on down there, and I don't know who this man is. I've never even seen a photo of him to this day. But there was a lot of other people who were on the phone with him that said that they've known him for over 20 years. So I don't know how true any of it is, but apparently he was a pimp back in the day in Las Vegas. working around these rappers, and a lot of the same names were coming up. I don't know when he fled to Uruguay or if he's even in Uruguay, but I know that I had a flight booked to Uruguay. I don't know what was going to happen if I were to go,
Yeah.
but
We
it's
probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
probably would not be sitting here. It
Following
just
you.
got very bizarre. So with William, he was supposed to be investing these millions of dollars into my music project. And then when his sister got arrested, I got a phone call from him asking me to send him $300 for his sister in jail. And because it was around Christmas time, just this year. And that's when I knew for sure this is blocked immediately. I have not spoken to him since. He's tried to call me from a different number since then, quite recently. But
You should give him my number. I'll dig into
right?
this.
Yeah, no, I have no idea who this guy is, but he's there's something going on there for sure, I believe.
Yeah.
And there actually is a connection between the two men I found in pitch decks, them together.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So this is now you dodged that bullet. You were here in Miami. You dodged the bullet and not going down to Uruguay. Fortunately, you followed your intuition and followed the advice of the gal who then introduced you to somebody else, thinking she was doing a good job, and sent you to Los Angeles
I don't know.
to be exploited.
So
or-
then at first it was, I met him at an event here in Miami. So she said, my friend, he has this big event this weekend. It was for Art Basel. And I do events as well with my company here and my DJ work, but mainly nightlife events. But she was like, my friend is freaking out. He has this event tomorrow. He really needs help. He'll pay you. Can you please help him? So I said, okay, no problem. He hired me. I went to help them with their event for 2 days. And that's where I met Ron, because the event was sponsored by him and his Lamborghini champagne, which is a complete fraud.
Well, and what I've seen over and over again in this industry is that people who defraud others in business also have low morals in other areas of their life. You
Right.
know, if they're acting out of integrity from a financial standpoint, then why would they act in integrity in their sexual life as well? And so there's a lot of crossover in that space. So, you know, the fact that the guy that was wanting to send you to Uruguay to be trafficked down there was running a fraudulent scheme up here. It's the same thing here. When you found out later, the second guy who was, you know, all BS, you know, in that space, but you didn't know that at the time, you know, and unfortunately, when you're young in the entertainment world, you're like, okay, everything that glitters is beautiful. This would be super cool. I want to be in this space, and they use the Lamborghini thing or the flights to here and whatever else as a way to lure
For
you.
me, that doesn't really work so much, but it was more like he has his entire scam is so in depth and complex, and there's so many people involved around him that are involved in it, and because of that, it makes it seem real. This guy, I found out later, I didn't know at the time, with these gold Lamborghini bottles. Lamborghini's actually suing him, but for New Year's Eve, we were hanging out with Elettra Lamborghini. So it makes no sense. You're like, you think, okay, he must be the Lamborghini guy if we're hanging out with the granddaughter of the Lamborghini estate. It made no sense. So I don't know how, but he is a con man and a very good one. But there's a lot of different things that were real in between.
Of course, you know, there's always enough real things in the mix to hide all of
Right.
the deception.
Yes. And I also found out like he had been sponsoring events that my radio station had years prior. Like obviously nobody knew who he was, but I thought if this guy has been around us this long, and I found him on the internet, but I didn't know it was him or not because there's so many different Ron Goldbergs in the United States that I'm like, okay, these charges can't be this guy. If everybody I know that has known him is, you know, saying he's such a great guy and he does all this charity work for the community, but it's all BS at the end of the day.
Yeah,
And completely.
yeah.
So that was the credibility there. And he used to own Death Row Records.
Wow. Death Row Records.
Death Row Records.
That should be your sign. Don't do business with somebody that owns something called Death Row.
Yeah. I mean, he says he owned Death Row, and he even sent me interviews from back in the day from Los Angeles of when they were buying it. He sent me TMZ interviews of him on camera. So I'm like, this guy really owned Death Row Records. He must be in the music business, and that's how he introduced himself to me. I was in the music business as well. And then from there it was, do you want to come out for dinner with us for our meeting tomorrow night? We're going to go to this nice restaurant. So I joined their meeting, and he told me at that meeting he wanted to give me a car.
First time he met you?
Second time, yeah.
So
and I was confused. Yeah, he did.
With conditions?
So at first it was actually his friend who, through the event, that told me about this car. He said, Ron bought me this car. He actually bought 3 or 4 of these Infinities, and I don't have a driver's license. Can I give you the car? And then when I have events, I need help, like, moving things around. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't really need a new car, first of all. And second of all, like, that's not what I do for work. Like, I'm not really interested. I'm busy myself. And so I told them I would think about it. And the next couple days, you know, he was like, I already did the insurance. Come pick up the car. And I'm like, I didn't even give you an answer yet. So my roommate and I drove to Naples and picked up this Infinity, which I realized later it was only so he could GPS track me everywhere I'd go. And during that, he took away my car during that time, saying he was going to take it to a body shop and get it fixed because maybe my bumper wasn't perfect or, you know, a little scratch here and there. I don't want this car, and this makes me very uncomfortable. And he said, you know what, I'm so sorry. It's only because it's a company car. You know, all of them have it. I can't change it. But to make you more comfortable, I'm going to buy you a brand new car in your name. Take me to the BMW shop and was buying a BMW M8, brand new. He even did all the paperwork and everything. I just had to go back to pick up the car. I never did.
So is this in your conversations with him? You know, I know that in the entertainment industry a lot, gifts like that, you know, their grooming type behaviors and whatnot are usually accompanied with, hey, I do this for you. You have to take care of my needs as well. Did you have any of those conversations with him early on, or was it just
no? Yes and no. At first, I really said absolutely not. We went to do our first event, and this was right before I got the car. And that night, I think he had been drinking or something. He told me he was going to buy me a ring and propose to me. This is a 66-year-old man. I told him, first of all, I just met you. Second of all, you're older than my father. Like, what makes you think that's okay? Like, please don't ever say that to me again. Absolutely not. And I said, look, if you want to do business with me, that's what you said you wanted to do. Sure, but now you're going to have to deal with my business manager instead of me because that was really inappropriate and I'm uncomfortable. After he had already tried to get me to stay in the same hotel room as him. And I said, absolutely not. If I'm going anywhere, traveling anywhere, I get my own room, end of story. And then he tried to do a shared room. So each, you know, the rooms where there's 2 rooms and like,
together,
yeah, I said no.
Well, good for you.
So, you know, I always made sure that before I went anywhere, you know, he would try to say, oh, we'll do the rooms in the car or on the way there. No, I'm not leaving my house until it's booked and in my name.
Well, and P. Diddy did this a lot. You know, he would use his money and fame and coercion to he would send a private jet for a young girl. And you know, one of them was 15 years old when she was picked up in Detroit on his private jet and flown to New York for a sex party. And you know,
wow.
A young woman at that age, you know, you're thinking, okay, now he paid for this, I feel guilty if I don't do something, you know, and unfortunately it happens a lot. It happened with my wife in Latin America. She was doing really well as an actress. She was in all the TV series and a bunch of advertisements and a whole bunch of things. And the president of the network said to her, listen, you know, I can make all of this happen. You know, I'm the one that helped you get on all of these things. So now you have to do this for me. And she told him in her New York terms to go F himself, right? And after that, she got blocked, completely
Right.
blocked. Literally,
Exactly.
there was no, she couldn't be on any of the TV things. It was completely blocked. So she instead turned around and said, all right, watch this. She started her own agency. And a year later, she had 2,700 girls working for her in her agency. Now the TV network had to go through her to get talent,
Wow.
right?
That's
So to kind of
amazing.
turn the tables on
Yeah.
them. But, sadly, most young women don't have the fortitude that you had or what that she
Right.
had. And they end up saying, yeah, I'll give up my moral foundation, my moral principles to be able to try to get ahead, to get this new car, to get this whatever else. And I tell people so many times when doing the undercover work, finding those traffickers, the common thread with the traffickers was not tattoos on their necks and earrings in their noses and gang member signs and whatnot. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust. And you see it
I can't
with
stand
Ron.
arrogance.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
saw it
Oh,
all over the
very
place.
arrogant man. Very arrogant man.
And they think that money and their fame and their power makes them more important than somebody else, and they can use other people as just an object.
Oh, yeah.
It happened with you. He saw that in you. He thought, well, I can just buy her things and she can go here. He wasn't trafficking you like the first one was trying to, but indeed, this is incredibly common in this industry. And in my opinion, it's playing in the same space as trafficking. You might not be taking you and forcing you to have sex with other people and whatever else, but it's the same manipulation, it's the same ego, it's the same arrogance, it's the same greed, it's the same
Oh,
lust
absolutely.
that's playing into that energy that's destroying lives so
Yeah,
many
no,
times.
I think that if I would have let him, that I definitely would have been trafficked by him as well. I mean, Ron was the one who drugged me
He drugged
in
you.
Los Angeles.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
one
talk
night.
about that.
I haven't seen him since that day.
Smart you.
Yeah. So I was performing that night in Los Angeles because of him, where we were, and there was like a lounge, and we all had dinner there before that day. I had already changed hotel rooms at that point because he had snuck into my hotel room a couple nights before
He snuck into your hotel room.
by getting the maid to let him into my room. And because I told him I was in my room sleeping, I didn't want to hang out with him that day. I just wasn't in my room sleeping. I was out eating dinner by myself.
And he thought you were in your room sleeping.
Yeah, I told
and
him
he
just
got the
like
key to your room.
he got the maid to let him in
Wow.
because he told them that he was worried about me, that I hadn't answered my phone. So he called me and said, "You're not in your room." And then I was like, "Oh my God, you're in my room. What are you thinking going in my room? That is so not okay." So I got everything out of there and I changed hotels, paid for my own room somewhere else. And so that day when I went to perform a couple days later, I was in my room by myself all day working on my music. And then he was trying to get me to go get hair and makeup every day. I'm like, you know what? I know how to do my hair and my makeup's already done. I'm good. I don't want to do all that today. I'll meet you there. So I met everybody there at the lounge to have the dinner before I performed. And they already had my drink on the table. It was a espresso martini. And I didn't really like it. So I only had like one or two sips before I went to the DJ booth. And when I got to the booth, I only played for about 20 minutes because they had about performers come do a show in the middle of it. So I stopped playing, and that's when I realized, like, I'm really drunk right now. And
So
I'm
he
like,
had put something in the
I'm not
espresso.
drunk. I don't, like, there's no way I'm drunk. So I said, they drugged me. And right away, I just ran out the emergency exit of the back of the club. I never went back to the table, and I got an Uber right away. Luckily, I wasn't out of my mind enough that I couldn't walk, or I still was able to do that. And he kept calling me and calling me. Where are you? Somebody's gonna hurt you. Like, what do you mean? I'm just in my hotel room. Why would somebody hurt me? Freaking out, calling my manager, like. And then the next day, he told my manager, "I think she got drugged last night." And I'm like, "Yeah, and it was you."
So you never said anything to him about how you felt and what was
I
in
just
the
said,
drink?
"I don't feel good," the next morning because we had to fly back to Las Vegas. He's like, "You scared me last night. Why wouldn't you answer like that?" I'm like, I did answer, and I told you I was in my room sleeping. Why are you still freaking out? Because I think he had other plans for me that night.
Of course he did.
And
Especially since you had kicked him out of your room, and he was getting
I
more and
think
more
he was
forceful
very
all the time.
angry.
Of course.
And he didn't
was-
want, I told him I was leaving leaving back to Miami the next day, and he's getting angrier and angrier. And he actually told somebody back in Miami he didn't want me coming back to Miami because I don't see him when I'm home. So he wanted to keep me out there, saying we had all these different events to do, and no, she has to
So
perform
and this guy,
here.
how old are you at the time? And how old is he? What's the age difference there? He was
28 and 65, I guess, when I met him.
65 years old. You know, there's a 40-year difference there. I mean, I have friends that are, 20, 30 years apart in their marriages and stuff, and they're super happy. But,
Great, yeah.
that's good for them. But it's
And he
it's
knows
less,
that, and I even made it clear that I'm not okay with that. And he met my parents too when they were here for Christmas. Even when I was out with my family, he'd invite himself and try to get close with my family. And I'm like, you met my father. And now you want to try, like, how dare you?
So what kind of advice do you have for young women who are in the entertainment industry, who want to progress in their career? What kind of advice in terms of keeping safe or being aware?
I think that no matter what, you got to just stay true to your morals. Morals are so important. And if you're crossing a line that you're not comfortable with, it's probably not for the right reason. There's nothing anybody can make me do for money or for any sort of power. I don't care about that. At the end of the day, you're going to answer to somebody else. And
Where did your moral foundation come from?
my family. I have an amazing family. And because of that, I think that that's why I am the way I am and was able to, realize evil in the industry and just wrong from right. And I know I have a family back home that loves me. So I want to make them proud. I don't want to ever sell my soul. And I think that's what a lot of these people do.
Unfortunately, the moment that they step over that line and they compromise, and then there's another compromise, and then there's another, and then there's another. And, the P. Diddy scandal, he has many, many people in his network that were a part of that. One of his charges was racketeering, and that's using a business enterprise and all the people working for you to
Well, I have
create that.
an email, and I heard in some of the P. Diddy stuff that Clive Davis was part of it, but I've heard the name before. I don't really know exactly who Clive Davis was. I went back in my emails, and I found the email from Ron saying that I was going to go to Platinum Sound with Jerry in New York City, and I was supposed to play for 30 minutes, and after that, if they liked it, I was going to get a record deal from Clive Davis. And I had to stay in the studio at this guy Jerry's house, though, while I was there. That's also another place where I dodged a bullet, I think. That was just back in February.
Interesting. Well, good for you, because there's unfortunately way too many people who don't have that solid foundation like you do, and allow their desire to be famous, their desire to be rich, to sacrifice their own moral foundations, and in doing so, they get sucked into this vortex.
I think people need to separate success from safety. These people are, just because they're successful doesn't mean they're good people. And a lot of the time, people think that they're credible. I should be okay going with them. Look how successful they are.
Yeah.
I think we need to start, holding people accountable for what they've done, and everybody, so that these people get out.
One of the books I'm writing right now is called "Are You Listening?" with my hand on my heart. Not are you listening here, but are you listening here? And on all the undercover missions in finding those children, it wasn't following logic and protocol. It was being led, and being led to where the kids were, being led to things that we can do to keep safe, and our intuitions are something that everybody is born with, it's that still small voice of truth that we can tune into. And when we start deviating from our moral principles, that sound gets dimmer and dimmer and harder to listen to. And so as we tune into that, it can truly guide us in a place that will keep us safe, that will lead us on the truest mission, that will bring the most happiness to us in our lives, that will be part of our divine path. But we have to learn how to turn off everything here, all the greed, all the arrogance, all the lust, all of this stuff, and tune into that still small voice of truth. And that, I believe, is what helped you dodge all of those bullets. Absolutely. You dodged the bullet of being there in the sleeping in the same studio as the guy that was involved with Diddy. You dodged the bullet of being trafficked down to Uruguay, and already bought your plane ticket and everything. And we wouldn't be here today if you were on that. You would have absolutely been involved in
absolutely, yeah.
and taken down in that network. And there's billions of people in the world. Finding you down there would have been a lot of work for a lot of people, but we would have found you. Yeah. But sadly, it happens to millions. There's 40 million people in slavery today. 40 million. Wow. There's a fourth of those are children. Wow. But 70% of people in sex slavery are women, and a lot of them are in their 20s. And in fact, I was talking to a girl that we helped to rescue, and we were helping on her rehabilitation, and she was taken in Mexico when she was about 12 years old, just turned 13, and she was taken to New York. She was sold up to 30 times a day, year after year after year. At 17 years old, she escaped. She got beat up, and they brought her back in. A few months later, she was just so tired, she was going to commit suicide anyway if she didn't get out. She escaped again, and some of the team of the foundation I was working with was able to get her out. We had her over to our house for Christmas as we were helping with rehabilitation, and I was talking to her, and I asked her this question. I said, tell me this. When men go online and they look and they see a woman, she's 27, 28 years old, she's in her she's not a child, she's an adult, and she says in there, independent. Like she'll say, I'm just doing this to get through college or pay for my baby's food or whatever else. I said, what percentage of the ones who say they're independent, of these sex workers that say they're independent, that truly are? And I thought that maybe half of them that say they're independent really are, the other half are being trafficked. I says, is it like 50%? And she said, oh no. She said 90 to 95% of the women that you think are independent, who are in the sex tourism world in the US or abroad, 95% of them are being trafficked. Wow. They're being controlled through fear, through drugs, manipulation. And what happens is this: these women too, their families don't think that they're being trafficked. Because what happens is here's what would happen to you in Uruguay. They would send you down there. They would rape you. They would drug you. They would take away your passport and your phone. They would say, listen, we know exactly where your parents live or your sister lives, all of this stuff. They would control you through fear, right. and they would traffic. It happens all the time. Right. And so we need to be aware. We tell police departments all the time, these women who you're arresting for prostitution, right. chances are they're a victim. And we need to figure out where the control is coming from. Where is the money going to? How these women are being manipulated. Right. And you were being groomed. You were being groomed with, hey, look at this Lamborghini party that you're at. Hey, we'll put you in here. Hey, we're going to give you this big contract. You were being groomed. You fortunately were able to tune in and sense that danger. And I told them
every day, I don't want any of this. Why are you doing this? Stop buying me things. I don't want any of this stuff. And it bothered him when I would do that. He would get angry that I didn't want it. He couldn't control me, and I noticed that. Yeah. So, I realized that, halfway through that this wasn't going to go anywhere. I wanted to figure out what was going on there. I went as long as I could until then. I still don't have all the answers. This is not a nice man. I know that.
You did some background checks. You found out a lot of
He's
dirt.
been in and out of prison for 40 years. Turns out he was on probation while we were traveling. He's not even allowed to leave Naples. And we're all over the country traveling and never even mentioned that he had been to prison before.
Of course not. Then you'd have red flags up and you wouldn't.
And then it's like all these lawyers signing for him and buying. It's just unreal. But
Don't trust them just because they're a lawyer.
no, of course, of course. I also grew up in Canada where, there's people don't act like this over there. I'm from Ottawa, a small city. Never even heard about any of this stuff or imagine having to deal with something like this. But, luckily I knew what to do because my parents raised me right and we were raised very religious and, God is number one no matter what, drilled into our heads from a very young age. And, I love them for that. And I believe that. So even though I'm in the music industry and I love touring and this and that, there's nothing that can, separate me from.
I teach people that the two most effective tools that you can give your children to keep them safe their entire life. The two most effective tools are not, taking them to karate class or teach them how to shoot a gun. The most powerful tools they can have is healthy self-esteem and a relationship with God. Those two things is what saved your life. Those two things is what kept you out of being trafficked. Those two things is what has led you to the healthy life and the healthy. You've followed your heart. You've stayed with your solid moral foundations, and in doing so, now you're on this beautiful path of freedom without having to ever be trafficked.
Yes.
So I know this was difficult because this is the first time that you're sharing a lot of this stuff publicly.
Right.
But after talking to you the other day, I really felt like our audience could learn things from you, because there are so many young people that want to go into the entertainment world. They want to be an actress. They want to be in the music industry. They want to be a model and whatever else. And the challenges that you dealt with and how you navigated through them are the same challenges that they're going to see in modeling and
Right.
being an actress. This was my wife went through all of these things. And so you being strong with your moral foundation, just like Vanessa, my wife, was strong with her moral foundation. And she saw all kinds of other women who would sleep their way to the top, so to speak. But unfortunately, they never did get to the top. These
Right.
guys were just using them for their own carnal desires and then letting them go on the side. These women never got to the top.
Right.
And unfortunately, they lost their way and they ended up losing everything that was truly important in this life.
Right, it's soul crushing as an artist too. It's like you think you're going to do all these great music projects and you just want to work on your music, and then you realize there's something a lot darker going on, and it has nothing to do with your music.
Yeah, it has to do with
So
arrogance and greed and lust. The
just
stuff we
focus
talk
on
about.
your own art and don't go where all the money talks, because I don't need a $30,000 investment in my music even. Like that's what I was being offered, and I don't know why. Like I don't even need it for my music. Like it's just
Well,
it didn't really make sense.
You hit top of the charts in multiple countries without
Yeah,
that
right. So it's
Lamborghini
like
and all
that's
that
what I
crap.
thought about later. It's like I was already doing it the right way,
Yeah.
and I never needed any of this stuff. So I'm gonna go back to doing that.
Good for you. Good
Yeah.
for you. Katrina, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for
me.
sharing today. Incredibly grateful. And for you guys listening, thank you for taking this time today. This was we're giving you lots of different guests that can help you keep your kids safe, keep yourself safe, and be aware of really what's happening in this world. This isn't about focusing on the darkness. This is about focusing on the light. And liberating humanity starts with each of us liberating ourselves from the toxicity of being controlled with money and lust and greed and all of this stuff. And so I'm super grateful for the time that you spent with us today. And until next time, this is Paul Hutchinson, Liberating Humanity.